to the miracles of the Eucharist and those who bear the wounds of Christ. These are the wonders that have inspired the fascination and faith of believers for centuries.
Discover outstanding holy reminders anytime. Go to EWTNRC.com to watch the latest episode of EWTN Religious Catalog right on the homepage. Learn about the newest sacramentals, books, and gifts for any season from the EWTN family you know and love. Buy Catholic. Shop the EWTN Religious Catalog on EWTNRC.com.
There's nothing under the sun or about the sun we don't talk about. Every day of the week, EWTN Catholic personalities and experts proclaim and explain the truth that is the eternal word. From challenges at home to issues that are universal, cutting through the clutter to reveal the beauty and mystery of our faith so you can grow closer to Christ and His Church. Go to EWTN for program schedules or watch anytime on demand.
I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, prayers for Pope Benedict. The Vatican says the 95-year-old's health has taken a sudden turn for the worse. We have a report from Italy. Border battle. The Supreme Court issues a ruling on a Trump-era policy regarding immigration. Tension in Taiwan. China responds to Taipei's recent announcement regarding its military. And on display, we take you inside one of the most historic churches in Rome for a remarkable nativity scene. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on this Feast of the Holy Innocents. Our top story tonight, the Vatican says the health of Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI has taken a sudden turn for the worse.
Una preghiera speciale per Papa Emerito Benedetto.
Pope Francis asked for prayers for the Pope Emeritus during his weekly talk to pilgrims today at the Vatican. EWTN's National Catholic Register says Pope Benedict is suffering from kidney failure. The Holy See says the 95-year-old is in stable condition and under medical care. Hannah Brockhaus, senior Rome correspondent for Catholic News Agency, joins us now. Hannah, great to see you. What more can you tell us about the condition of the Pope Emeritus, and what more do we know?
Well, Tracy, we don't have a lot of details of about what Benedict XVI's health is looking like. We just have the news from the Vatican that his health is worsening, and Pope Francis's request, of course, for us to pray for him because he is very ill. I did speak recently with the director of the Holy See Press Office, Matteo Bruni, who told me that the decline is due to Benedict's old age.
And what did Pope Francis say about Pope Benedict in his remarks today at the Vatican?
Pope Francis spoke about how Benedict XVI is sustaining quietly, silently the church. Obviously, he was hearkening back to other statements he's made in the past about Benedict XVI praying for the church and in his own way from the monastery inside Vatican City, doing what he can to still continue the work that he began as Pope and now does as Pope Emeritus.
And what about the reaction so far in Italy and also around the world? What have you been hearing?
Of course, there's an outpouring of love and prayers for Benedict being shown on social media. And the Vatican has also put out a special prayer, a short prayer to pray for Benedict and his health. And in addition, the president of the Italian Bishops' Conference, Cardinal Matteo Zuppi, has also put forth a statement saying that the bishops of Italy are praying for Benedict and thinking of him, and especially in light of something Benedict himself said, which is, despite trials or whatever may befall us, that the Lord has us in his hands.
Hannah, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Hannah Brockhaus, senior Rome correspondent for Catholic News Agency. Thank you again.
Thanks, Tracy.
We go now to Sohrab Ahmari, a founder and editor of Compact Magazine. Sohrab, great to see you as always. I'm curious, what was your reaction when you heard about the worsening health of Pope Benedict?
Well, I was very saddened and was compelled by Pope Francis's call to pray for the Pope Emeritus. Pope Benedict's writings mean a great deal to me as a convert to the faith. I wrote in my memoir that more than any one human person, Pope Benedict is the one to whom I owe my soul, because it was reading his Jesus of Nazareth trilogy that that convinced me that that our faith is a supremely reasonable faith, that there's no clash between being intelligent, seeking out reasonable explanations about ultimate questions, and believing in God, and specifically believing in the crucified God.
Yeah, and you know, with his health being the way it is right now, pretty, you know, poor and dire, what do you think this moment means for the faithful?
Well, I mean, man, there's just so much to treasure about his teaching, and I think that's what we should redouble to in this moment. Even as we pray for him, we should also intellectually pay attention to what he taught. And I specifically, I mean, among the various documents, I'm particularly attached to his Regensburg address, delivered in 2006, not long after he was elected. And unfortunately, it was mischaracterized by both opportunistic Muslim imams and also basically a religiously ignorant media, mainstream secular media, as a harangue against Islam. And it was anything but. It was really a critique of the Reformation, a critique of the Enlightenment's narrow account of what it means to be rational and reasonable, that excludes ultimate questions and ultimate causes, and what he described as the de-Hellenization of Christianity, what he lamented as the de-Hellenization of Christianity, meaning the attempt to sever the faith from its encounter in late antiquity with Greco-Roman thought, which brought the faith into dialogue with Greek philosophy and strengthened it thereby. So that's a very, very important teaching. If anyone at this moment is looking to go back to the archives, as it were, I personally recommend taking a look at the Regensburg address.
Yeah, and so what do you think is the Pope Emeritus? What do you think is his legacy?
I think it's a consolidation of Pope John Paul II's legacy in terms of ecclesiastical matters, although I'm not any kind of expert in that. That's just a kind of an interior and broad sense. But for me, I think his legacy for the broader world, even beyond the confines of the Catholic Church, which is large enough, his legacy beyond that is an attempt to repose the questions that are answered by religious faith, and why those are important for all people, and why mere scientific knowledge doesn't satisfy all of the human soul's yearnings, and that as legitimate as scientific inquiry is, it doesn't answer why questions. And for those questions, we have to return to revealed religion. And so it's about this, and again, this carries forward from John Paul II. It's this rich dialogue between faith and reason, and frankly, I mean, this is the important part: is a broader view of what reason can compass than mere sort of scientific or scientism can offer, right? Human reason can know is more than merely what we can see and measure with our scientific instruments. So that's his, I think, deepest legacy for humankind, really, for all men of goodwill, as many encyclicals used to begin.
Well, Sohrab, great to be with you. Thank you so much for your insights, and God bless you. Well, here in the United States, the Supreme Court has ordered that the Trump-era immigration policy known as Title 42 must remain in place at least for a few more months. The move ensures federal officials will be able to continue to swiftly expel migrants at the U.S. borders. Capitol Hill correspondent Erik Rosales has reaction from Capitol Hill.
The 5-4 order is a major victory for Republican-led states that urged the Supreme Court to step in and block the lower court's decision. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer criticized the opinion and says Title 42 doesn't work.
You know, Title 42 has no consequences. So you cross the border, you push back on the other side, and the same people cross over and over again. It's not a comprehensive plan that's ever going to work.
Leader Schumer adds the Biden administration is working on a plan, but the details have not been made public. The Department of Homeland Security says it's sending more resources to the border, targeting smugglers, drug dealers, and working with international partners. But Republican Senator Rick Scott and others tell me the administration is ignoring border security.
The Biden administration, one, they want to have an open border. I don't understand it. Number two, it's clearly intentional on their part. Number two, they don't care about Americans. They don't care that kids are dying because of fentanyl overdose. They don't care that people are being shot by criminal gangs.
The Biden administration can see with their own eyes and hear with their own ears what's going on. So why don't they do something? Well, I think the answer to that is they don't care. That's a hard thing to say.
Since March 2020, Title 42 has allowed U.S. border agents to immediately turn away migrants who have crossed the southern border to prevent the spread of COVID. In almost 3 years, the authority has used it over 2 million times to turn migrants away, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection.
But we understand that Title 42 isn't a long-term solution. The long-term solution is actually to enforce the law, number one. And number two, to change some of these laws, including the asylum law, which clearly is not working.
The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments on Title 42 in February and hand down a decision come June. The White House says that it will abide by the court's opinion, even though it disagrees with its action. Outside the U.S. Supreme Court, Erik Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Joining us tonight with more on the crisis at the border and the response from Washington is Jenny Sevilla Korn, GOP political strategist and former White House deputy assistant to President Trump. Jenny, great to see you again. All right, let's get right to it. I want to get your thoughts on this latest move by the Supreme Court. What does it suggest about the Biden administration's handling of the situation at the border?
Right. Well, good evening, Tracy. And Americans should be outraged, whether they're Republican or Democrats, at what is happening at the border. It is such a crisis, humanitarian crisis, a national security crisis, and even the Supreme Court sees that we need measures to keep our country safe. But unfortunately, President Biden doesn't see this, or if he does, he is literally doing nothing about it. He has had 700 days to do something about it, and they are still working, as we heard Chuck Schumer say, on a plan. Well, where is that plan? Because it's been 700 days, and you've got Border Patrol agents at that border pleading with the president to please help them do their jobs. Some of the numbers are just outrageous. 2 years ago, before President Biden took office, 450,000 migrants came across that border. Today, this year, over 2.5 million migrants have come through. And it's just not all people who are seeking asylum. In those numbers, there are over 100 people who are on the terror watch list. So there's a lot happening at the border, and the president is just absent.
Yeah, and it seems the Biden administration is pinning the blame on the GOP for this crisis. What do you think about all that?
Well, that's a ridiculous notion, because there have been two Democrat presidents, both Obama and Biden, who have had a veto-proof Senate, Congress, and the White House, and they didn't do anything in their first 2 years. I worked for President Bush when we tried to get 06 and 07 legislation through. Unfortunately, didn't get through. And I was also there during the Trump administration when we offered DACA for 1.8 million migrants for a secure border. I don't understand why the Democrats are pushing against, or it's not just Democrats, it's President Biden, who are pushing against a secure border. There are Democrats like Henry Cuellar, who's a congressman in Texas. There are Democrat mayors in Texas who are saying, please, Mr. President, we need to secure our border. Please give us the resources to do it. And you know what's really amazing is that the president has the tools at his disposal to fix this problem. And he refuses to do that. And he also refuses to go down to the border to see with his own eyes what's happening. If there's a natural disaster, a president goes down and visits it. This is a man-made disaster, and the man is President Biden, who made this. It can be fixed. So I implore the president to please go down to the border, to please use the tools at his disposal and work with Republicans to actually do something to fix this crisis.
And Jenny, I know you say that the Biden administration is using Title 42 as a diversion, a sort of political wedge that Americans are catching on to. Talk to me more about that. And is the White House turning a blind eye, you mentioned it, to the crisis at the border? And why is that?
Right. So I wrote in my op-ed that you can find on Twitter at Jenny S. Korn about this division. It's a political wedge. I heard yesterday somebody on CNN saying that the Republicans want this as a political wedge. That's ridiculous. The Republicans are the ones putting forward the plans that will fix this. In fact, just 2 years ago, President Trump put policies in place like Remain in Mexico policy, having a physical barrier, having the agreements with other countries, asylum agreements, so that those people who want to come over, who have true asylum requests, can stay in their country of origin as we're processing them. It's impossible for our border agents to be able to process as many people as are happening. So there's only one party right now and one president that is allowing this to happen, and that's President Biden. I heard Karine Jean-Pierre say Republicans need to come to the table. Republicans, as you heard from the clips that you just played, are ready to come to the table and fix this crisis. They did it 2 years ago. They'll do it again.
All right, and we're going to leave it right there. Jenny, thank you so much, as always, for your insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including a former U.S. Marine remains in prison in Russia, what the White House is saying about Paul Whelan, and what China is saying about recent moves regarding Taiwan's military.
One of the more popular items on EWTNRC.com this month is the detail of Our Lady of Guadalupe. This reproduction, designed exclusively for EWTN, shows you a beautiful close-up view of the Virgin Mary as she appeared to St. Juan Diego. This high-quality textured art is a wonderful way to bring the patroness of the Americas into your home. To order, go to EWTNRC.com and search for item number 39018.
See who's coming to the Pinto House on At Home with Jim and Joy. Next time, join Jim and Joy as they reflect on some of their favorite moments over the past year and look forward toward the next. At Home with Jim and Joy. Tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on EWTN.
It takes time for fruit to ripen. We hear from God the first command, be fruitful and multiply. Now, we don't bear strawberries and apples and things like that. We bear the fruit of the Spirit. Love and peace and joy, that's the fruit that God wants from us. And He's giving us time to become, to bear fruit.
The Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, unlocking education and virtue, cultivating the next generation of disciples. Whether you're a Catholic educator or just want to continue your Catholic education, you're invited to join the sisters for an uplifting journey to a life of virtue. An all-new episode of the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, here on EWTN.
The Biden administration says it continues to press for the immediate release of American businessman and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan. He has been sitting in a Russian prison on espionage charges his family and the U.S. government have said are baseless. Today marks 4 years since his detention there. White House Correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Good evening to you, Tracy. 52-year-old Paul Whelan, a Michigan corporate security executive, was sentenced back in 2020 to 16 years. The Biden administration says Whelan is being wrongfully detained, calling it unacceptable. And tonight, whether he comes home anytime soon remains to be seen. As Paul Whelan remains behind bars in Russia, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said in a statement, "Today marks 4 years that Paul Whelan has spent wrongfully detained, away from his family, suffering through an unfathomable ordeal. Russian authorities subjected him to a secret trial and sentenced him to 16 years in a Russian penal colony based on secret evidence." And National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan wrote, "As the President and I have told the Whelan family, we will not stop, we will not relent, we will not cease until all Americans can celebrate Paul's return." Earlier this month, another American behind bars in Russia, WNBA star Brittany Griner, was freed. U.S. officials had hoped to include Whelan in a prisoner swap, but no go. On December 8th, the President addressed Whelan's incarceration.
Sadly, for totally illegitimate reasons, Russia is treating Paul's case differently than Brittany's. And while we have not yet succeeded in securing Paul's release, we are not giving up. We will never give up.
Meanwhile, Buffalo, the National Guard going door to door there checking on people who lost power during western New York's deadliest winter storm in decades. Authorities are facing the tragic possibility of finding more victims amid melting snow. One woman described how she saved a frostbitten man from the blizzard.
I'm just so grateful I was able to save his life. I'm grateful that Trent was able to pick him up and bring him in here.
And for air travelers, the mess continues, especially for Southwest. This week, with cancellations from other major airlines ranging from none to 2%, Southwest has canceled nearly 10,000 flights as of today. And according to FlightAware, warned of thousands more Thursday and Friday. And tonight, pressure is growing on the federal government to help customers get reimbursed for unexpected expenses they may have incurred. For its part, Southwest says it is truly sorry, hopes to be back on track before next week, and is working to make sure this never happens again. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, extending mandatory military service, analysis of a decision from Taiwan and how China is responding. Plus, a basilica in Rome displays a remarkable nativity scene. We'll explain.
On New Year's Eve, the Franciscan missionaries of the Eternal Word ring in the new year in a liturgical celebration. Join us as we pray to make atonement for the sins of the past year, so that we may meet the year anew. The Solemn Mass of Reparation from Irondale, Alabama, beginning New Year's Eve at midnight Eastern on the Global Catholic Network, EWTN.
The topics, the issues we bring to people into their living rooms, into their dens, on the world over. Much of this is very subjective. These are the issues and the things I'm concerned about. These are the topics I wrestle with. And to have the opportunity to invite really knowledgeable people on the front lines in whatever this discipline is, to explain, to work through, to answer our questions, it's a great gift. To me first, and then of course to the audience.
Welcome back. The nation of Taiwan is upping its period of mandatory military service from 4 months to 1 year. This as the country contends with further threats from China. Just after Christmas, China's military sent 71 planes and 7 ships toward Taiwan in a 24-hour show of force, even as Beijing and other parts of China grapple with the surge of COVID-19 overwhelming hospitals and crematoriums. And joining us tonight with the latest is Sei Hoon Kim of the Captive Nations Coalition on the Committee on Present Danger China. Sei Hoon, great to be with you as always. Let's talk about this show of aggression from China and Taiwan's beefing up military service requirements. What do you think this all signals?
Well, it's pretty simple. Beijing knows that it has lost all credibility during the COVID. It's the enforcement of its COVID policies in China, and so they need something to show its people that it is still this great power that could actually beef up its military and to defend the honor of China and further continue this distraction away from the internal problems and really gear the attention of the people towards the external threats rather than the ones that are existent inside.
Yeah, and there is talk that another factor in Taiwan's push to amp up defense is due to the United States' increasing focus on Ukraine and thereby less on Taiwan. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, Secretary Blinken, I would say at the very least, foolishly said that they needed to essentially abandon Afghanistan because they could not focus on two allies at the same time. I mean, this gives countries like China and even other dictatorships around the world this sense of empowerment to do whatever that they want. And in the case of China, attacking Taiwan, it seems now is going to be easier than it was before. And so that's probably one of the reasons why this whole support to Ukraine is going to also result in China thinking that they can now do whatever it needs to do in order to take over Taiwan. And again, my heart goes out to the Ukrainian people and to the Taiwanese people as well, because they are going to be the collateral damage in all of this.
Yeah, indeed. And as mentioned, COVID-19 is really pummeling parts of China in the wake of the country's easing up on its zero COVID policy without an exit strategy. There are reports of backed up crematoriums and rationing at the doorsteps of hospitals. What else do you know about this, Sei Hoon?
Well, you know, even if the COVID policies have rescinded all over China, that does not mean that the surveillance has not been rescinded. As you know, folks in Shanghai and other parts of China are reporting that they're being surveilled, they're being asked by police regarding protest materials on their phones. And so even if the wider policies may have reduced, the CCP certainly is discreetly enforcing all of its dictatorial, practices all over the country still. So I personally cannot say that at least the spirit of these COVID lockdowns are gone. Matter of fact, it's becoming a lot bigger than before, but very discreetly this time, as I said before.
Yeah, we have a little over a minute left, but I do want to get this question in. And as you know, the protests that we saw just a couple of weeks ago resulted in a global shortage of basic antibiotics and even medicines like Tylenol, all made in China. Any word on just how far-reaching the shortage is, and also how concerning is this?
Well, it's very, very concerning. And the shortage itself also tells us that Beijing can literally hold the entire world hostage when it comes to medical supplies. Even just discussing things like Tylenol, for example, it is absolutely ridiculous that we are depending on Chinese manufacturers in order for us to get these basic over-the-counter necessities just to relaxes of our ailments. And again, in the future, Beijing can technically use this if we do go into full-scale war against them and to really starve us out from our basic needs. And so it is extremely concerning, and every single country that has any link to China should be very concerned at this point.
Yeah, definitely. We have about 30 seconds left. Sei Hoon, final thoughts.
Well, I would say Beijing beefing up its military towards Taiwan also it signifies the fact that our administration has, in a sense, failed in its foreign policy actions. And again, since the world is now taking notice of that, it definitely is. It seems like dictatorships around the world, again, are being empowered to do whatever they want. And again, if there indeed is an invasion of Taiwan, a large portion of it will be because of the decisions of this administration.
Well, Sei Hoon, thank you so much for your time. Always appreciate it. Finally tonight, one of the oldest basilicas in Rome is now showing what is one of the first known nativity scenes. Held in the underground chapel of St. Mary Major, the 13th century marble scene can now be viewed by the public. It is unclear how many figures were originally created. However, what is left are the three wise men, St. Joseph, a cow, and a donkey. Gorgeous. Then we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sable. Good night, and God bless.
I am Father Mitch Packle, and we would like to invite you to a very special Christmas celebration this year. We're here to spend time celebrating Christmas with a number of the inmates in the Stiles Unit Prison in Beaumont, Texas. And we are going to be enjoying the holy sacrifice of the Mass, as well as a beautiful music concert with Eric Janis. So, look forward to this, and I hope you get to enjoy this Christmas special.
The Holy Father's prayer intention for the month of December is volunteer nonprofit organizations. We pray that volunteer nonprofit organizations committed to human development find people dedicated to the common good and ceaselessly seek out new paths to international cooperation.
Greetings. Good to be back with you again. You will recall that we are answering the question why we attend a great deal to the saints. We have considered 5 reasons we will finish in this little talk. The next reason